Good afternoon. Our project is on the evaluation of beef cattle growth based on feedstuff ratios by Casey DiCiaccio,
Ashley Mauer,
Lauren Bates,
Leanne Tater. Our objectives for the study are to assess cattle fed different rations, to analyze the best feed ratio for achieving optimal meat profitability and beef cattle production. This includes the amount of time until market ready, as well as the lean meat quality that is produced, and to analyze how grain or grass-fed cattle can affect human health by consumption.
The importance of this study is that a short time ago, grass-fed beef was known only to cattle ranchers and livestock commodity analysts. This is a technical term used primarily to describe the meat of inferior quality or of a lower price. Using a conventional system, cattle are fattened or finished in dedicated feedlots on a diet of solely corn and grain with occasional supplemental of forage. The grass-fed term refers to the absence of this production step, so a lot of grass-fed cattle will never see a typical feedlot that a lot of people generally associate with raising cattle. Close to 100% of domestic beef production is on a corn-fed or grain-fed program, and there were barely a few dozen producers that relied extensively on or exclusively on grass, but this is beginning to change. The possible impact that this research can lead to is it can increase a niche market. It can increase farmer premiums for meat price through grass-fed beef cattle rations. It can also improve human health by the consumption of grass-fed beef versus grain-fed beef. McAfee found that consuming red meat from grass-fed animals compared with concentrate-fed animals as part of the habitual diet can significantly increase consumer plasma and platelet long-chain N3 polyunsaturated fatty acid status, which would lead to an increase in human health.
Other ways of it increasing the niche market as opposed to focusing on the consumer, this would be focusing on the farmer or the rancher, in that it could lead to increased profits. Weber et al. Explains that the grassroots coalition movement has spurred a market for grass-fed meat and dairy products in the United States since the early 1990s. McCluskey et al. Stated that as consumer preferences evolve, it is important for the beef industry to understand consumer preferences for specialty products such as grass-fed beef. As the movement towards organic products is becoming more popular, people are looking for alternative options other than beef raised in confinement areas, such as how they usually are in the feedlot pens. So they're looking towards grass-fed or pasture-raised beef and dairy so that they're consuming more holistic products, and also because it can lead to greater health benefits for them. Weber et al. Also mentions that grass-fed meat and dairy products are now served in high-end restaurants and sold at a premium by ranchers. That means there's room to create a higher profit with the same amount of product, whereas selling beef based on just grain diets is a certain price, but the grass-fed diets will be, the farmers will be paid a premium for having that niche market product available for sale. And like mentioned earlier, whereas grass-fed meat used to be considered something that wasn't as good or that was inferior, now high-end markets are looking towards buying this kind of product because it is considered organic and holistic.
In addition, it is found that grass-fed beef can also improve consumer health. McCluskey states that the overall fat content of grass-fed beef is similar to that of skinless chicken. Another important health benefit from grass-fed beef is the higher level of omega-3 fatty acids, which can lead to reduced inflammation and overall health wellness. Meat from pasture-fed cattle may have an increased demand for endogenous antioxidants because of its high content of polyunsaturated fatty acids, which was in a paper written by Yang, and that has been stated previously as well.
In a study by Cynthia Daly in 2010, She found that there are 4 major health benefits from grass-fed beef. The first was increased essential fatty acid content, beta-carotene and vitamin A, alpha-tocopherol and vitamin E, and antioxidant enzymes. In nutrition, there are essential fatty acids that the body needs. These fatty acids are they are not synthesized by the body, which means that we have to incorporate them into our diet. And the 2 that were found in the grass-fed beef were alpha-linolenic acid, which is also called omega-3 fatty acid, and linoleic acid, which is also known as omega-6 fatty acid. These fatty acids serve as precursors for other compounds in the body. The diet requirements of omega-3 fatty acids versus omega-6 fatty acids is that you need more omega-3 fatty acids because they have certain health benefits. These health benefits are the decrease in the risk of atherosclerosis, which is the hardening and narrowing of the arteries, heart attack, depression, and cancer, and it also reduces inflammation caused by rheumatoid arthritis. Another health benefit that Cynthia Daly found was the carotenoids ingested by the cattle. These compounds created a yellow carcass fat, which was caused by the ingestion of the lush green pastures. These carotenoids caused the yellow carcass fat, which was negatively viewed in many countries, but it actually has a higher amount of fatty acids and a higher antioxidant content. These carotenes are precursors for retinol. Retinol is also known as vitamin A, and it's important for vision, bone growth, reproduction, cell division, and cell differentiation. It also helps maintain the skin and form a barrier against bacterial and viral infections. And lastly, it regulates the immune system by supporting the production and function of white blood cells.
Other benefits of grass-fed cattle are increased vitamin E levels. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it also has powerful antioxidant activity. Alpha-tocopherol is the most active form of vitamin E, and this is found in increased levels in grass-fed beef. This protects cells against free radical effects, which Daly describes as damaging byproducts of metabolism. And these can delay heart disease and block carcinogen formation in the body. The last health benefit that Daly found in her study was that of glutathione. This is an antioxidant enzyme content in the grass-fed beef. Her research found traces of glutathione identified in the foods, and it kills the free radicals, which, as previously mentioned, were damaging, and this protects cells to prevent DNA damage.
In a study by Crystal and Barterset, they found that the value of beef from grass-finished cattle is often discounted compared with concentrate-fed beef because of the perceived differences. These differences are in tenderness, color, juiciness, and flavor. In the chart on the right, there was a study done by Melton and his associates, and they used 25 test subjects where the test subjects were required to taste different samples of grass-fed beef and grain-fed beef. And then they had to rate them on a flavor scale. On this scale, a number below 6 was considered undesirable, and a number above 6 was considered desirable. And for all of the grass-fed samples, they received a flavor scale value of a number below 6, and the grain-fed received values above 6, which indicated that they were more desirable for their taste and their tenderness and their flavor. The test subjects also noted that the grass-fed beef had an oily, milky flavor to it, and it also had a green, soapy aroma that affected its taste. Melton also found that carcasses of grain-fed beef were heavier than grass-fed beef, and this gave the grain-fed beef carcasses a greater fat depth, ribeye area, and degree of finishing.
Other grass-fed drawbacks is that having a production that's mainly based on grass-fed cattle requires a temperate climate as recorded by O'Riordan and O'Kiley. This is mainly because you need the grass available for the cattle, so the weather can't be too extreme where it's too hot and the grasses will die, or too cold and the grasses will die or be covered by the snow so that the cattle can't get to them, since this is their main source of nutrients. As Lauren said, it also has a unique flavor to the meat, as Melton noted as well, and it can have producer drawbacks since the cattle will likely take more time to reach their finishing weights as opposed to their concentrate-fed counterparts. This is mainly because the grass doesn't have the higher amount of energy and lipids and proteins that will get them to gain faster with their average daily gain or their gain per day. And so this will cause potentially longer time with having the cattle on the farm, so producer drawbacks.
For our experimental design, we will have 3 groups of 3 calves each. The first group will be the control group, the second group will be the grain-fed group, and the final group will be the grass-fed group. All of the calves will be fed the same ration up till 5 weeks of age, and at that point they will diverge into which group they will be assigned to. And measurements will be taken weekly from week 5 until sent off to slaughter at around 18 months of age, 19 months of age.
We will evaluate the cattle on various different criteria. Some of the criteria will include average daily gain and feed efficiency. For average daily gain, since we're only going out on a weekly basis, we will convert that into average daily gain by dividing by the number of days between weighing. For feed efficiency, we will compare the amount of food offered to the cattle versus the amount that they actually consume. At the conclusion of this experiment, we will take a look at the finishing weight at which they max out at before they are sent to slaughter. We will also evaluate the lean meat ratios that are provided at slaughter.
So the first group is our control group. These calves will follow normal operating procedures for raising cattle as per the farmer's methods. We will record weekly measurements, ration information, vaccination status, as well as housing methods. The farmer will use a combination of rations throughout the growing and finishing processes, and this will include both legume and grain diets. All the calves in the groups will have access to fresh water as well as sanitary living conditions.
Group 2 is our grain-fed group. After weaning at approximately 5 weeks of age, the calves will be placed on a diet program consisting of mainly a concentrate-based diet, including rations of corn silage, grain, and supplemental protein meal, which can be soybean meal, corn gluten meal, or blood meal. This type of ration has a higher fat and protein and basic energy level, which is why I mentioned earlier about them taking a faster time to finish. And this group will also have adequate living conditions and water at all times.
Group 3 is our grass-fed group. Like the other groups, after weaning at approximately 5 weeks of age, the cows will be placed on a pasture-based grass program. They will have access to perennial ryegrass, white clover, and alfalfa. Depending on what season it is, when they are out on pasture, they may have access to more alfalfa or white clover or the ryegrass. It just depends on the growing season. The calves in Group 3 will not have access to a supplemental program, so they will not be receiving additional vitamins and minerals that are not found in the grass, and they will not be on a high-energy diet like the Group 2 calves will be. And like the other groups, they will have access to shelter from the elements, and they will also have access to fresh water at all times.
For our experiment, we will need 21 months. We will start at week 5, or we will start with 5-week-old calves, and then we will need 18 months to grow the cattle and collect the data, and then 3 months to analyze all the data that has been collected.
For this experiment, we are allotted a $2,000 combined budget. 48% of our budget will be spent on the feed for the cattle, so grain and hay costs, and this will be about $950, or 48% of the budget. 30% of the budget will be general upkeep and veterinary care of all the calves, and this will be about $600. And finally, 22% of the budget will be cost of calf purchase, and this will be about $450.
And since we haven't run the experiment yet, we aren't sure of our results, but I have found a couple studies that have been done. This data is from Rolini in 2004, and he did a similar experiment where he analyzed different carcass characteristics of steers that had been raised on pasture versus ones that had been raised on a concentrate-based diet. He found that the hot carcass weight of the concentrate cattle were about 15 pounds higher, give or take a couple pounds, than the pasture group. The age at which they reached a adequate finishing weight and could be sent to slaughter was slightly less than the pasture group. The overall conformation rating, which is on a scale from 1 to 6, with 1 being excellent conformation and 6 being poor conformation, the concentrate group had a slightly lower conformation rating, so that indicated that they had slightly better conformation than the pasture group. The degree of finishing at time of slaughter for the concentrate group was also higher. The fat depth for the concentrate group was about 1.5 times greater, finishing at a 6.1 millimeters versus a 3.8 millimeter for the pasture group. And the ribeye area of the concentrate group was also higher by about 7 centimeters squared. The concentrate group finished at about 63, whereas the pasture group finished at about 55 or so. And this just indicates that it may be due to the fact that there's a higher energy diet provided to the calves, as Casey had mentioned previously, and this leads to a higher deposition of growing and putting down fat as desired for characteristics at slaughter.
Dissemination of results. We would like to present at the Tri-Beta National Convention and at the Ohio Academy of Sciences Conference in either a poster format or a presentation format. Possible paper publications include the Livestock Science Journal, the Journal of Animal Physiology and Animal Nutrition, the Journal of Animal Science and Biotechnology, and the Journal of Applied Animal Nutrition. Thank you for listening and have a great day.